Hi everyone. I'm very happy to be here and talk to you today about the challenges of designing apps for kids. The presentation is divided into 3 parts. I'll give you a brief introduction as to who I am and who my company is. Then we'll go into the nitty-gritty of what are the challenges and then how do we deal with it and where do we see the opportunities. So Edoki Academy is the result of a merger that happened in November 2015 of 2 competitors. I originally set up a company called Les Trois Ailes, which was then rebranded to Edoki, with 2 other women, Marilyn and Gaëlle. And 7 Academy was founded by Emmanuel and Sylvain. And they were 2 French-based companies that made educational apps for children, mobile apps, and even more precisely, they were really iPad apps to begin with and then evolved. So we got together in November of last year, as I said. So we've become a stronger team, 5 partners, but we're 15 in total, with 12 people being in Montreal, which is now the center office, even though the company is still French. And I'm based in London, UK. One of my partners in Paris and the other one in Hong Kong. So we're a very international company. So who are we? First of all, our mission is to empower children by making them active learners. And it's really important because when the iPad came along, I saw it as a true opportunity to get children interactive with quality educational content. And to tell you a bit more about myself, I studied business in Canada and France. I started my career as a management consultant, and then I studied again to become a Montessori teacher, and I taught for 8 years in a Montessori school. So when the opportunity came along to mix my business and my educational careers together, it was God-given for me. And as a Montessori teacher, because using your senses is very, very important in Montessori. Well, the iPad, when it first came along, was the best tool ever that used as many senses as possible, even though it's a flat 2D surface, of course. So we released our very first app called Montessori Numberland in 2010, and we designed it without having ever seen an iPad. So it was released in August, a few months right after the iPad was released. And now we have 26 apps, because one was released since I made the presentation. And they are paid for. That's important. We'll come back to that. And they're available in at least 15 languages, which is another important point. So I said they're paid apps, and so that's why number of downloads is 2 million. May not sound like a lot, especially for those of you who are used to free-to-play. But in the paid business, it's a very good number. And one of the reasons I said is 50 countries, because we have so many languages, we sell in over 50 countries, and that obviously increases revenue and downloads. We're very proud because our apps have won multiple awards, and 2 of them were selected by Apple for a billboard and an internet ad campaign. And also this average session time in the last app that we released called Busy Water was released 10 days ago. We're now up to 20 minutes, so we're very proud of that. Okay, the challenges. So first of all, our first challenge is, who's our client? Our client can have up to 3 heads, because the end user is a child, but the person who's buying the app is an adult. That's what we think anyway. It can be a parent, it can be a teacher, it can be a school board, it can be a city in some countries where it depends who chooses for the schools. Because we sell to individuals but also to schools. So our products need to be fun enough for the kids to enjoy playing with it, convincing enough for the parents to want to buy them, and educational enough for the schools to purchase and download them for their usage as well. So that makes it obviously more complicated than if you're targeting one single person. And because we're targeting kids, we have to deal with legislation, and everybody's heard of COPPA, Children Online Protection Privacy Act, which was first voted in '98, but revamped in 2013. And what it does, and I put a smile there because the end objective of COPPA is to protect children's privacy. So it's a good thing. And the way that the FTC does that is by saying, you know, don't do anything that will take children online or risk their information from being taken from them, but give that back to the parent. The parent can decide, put them in a situation where it's the parent's choice to share information. On the other hand, the bad side for us is that we are not allowed to collect any personal information, whether it be text, voice recording, picture, video, or information like geolocalization or whatever. And what it also says is that if you use a third-party SDK in your app, it is your responsibility to make sure that this third party is COPPA compliant. So you can't even say, it's not my fault. No, it's your responsibility. And then on top of that, Apple added a few rules where they don't allow behavioral advertising in apps for children under the age of 13. And they force us to have what we call a parental gate to access anything outside the app. So, well, we don't have many choices, do we? We don't collect any personal data in any of our apps. We have clear privacy policies stating what we do and what we don't do, and they have to be inside the app. And then we use parental gates. Now, what are parental gates, if you're not familiar with them? They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. It can be multiplication. It can be, you know, a function, swipe up with fingers to get the app. Or it can ask for your data, your year of birth to check how old you are. Is this really test proof? Not sure. We have a multiplication app, and so we teach children how to multiply. And then our parental gateway was a multiplication. So yeah, okay, doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, if you're gonna say swipe up with 2 fingers to get the app, may I remind you that it's for children under the age of 13. Now, who between the age of 7 and 13 cannot read that and do it? So there's still, I mean, they've gone so far as to try and protect children as much as they can, but we still haven't determined, and we've used all these gates, and we still haven't determined which one is the best one to protect children above 8, let's say. Although, again, these gates have to be in the app if you take the child onto the internet or app store. And why is that a hurdle for us? Well, we're trying to make apps that get viral, that within which you can share stuff that you've made, or you can ask people to come in. So I'll give you an example. We have an app called Easy Stop Motion Studio, where children can create a little stop motion film very easily. And then what do you want to do once you've created the film? You want to share it with your friends and peers. Well, we can't do it within the app, or we have to put all sorts of... So the way we've done it is we've given it back to the parents. So the app gives you the possibility to download the movie you created onto the device. And then once it's in the camera roll, then you can do whatever you want with it, send it via email or post it on Facebook. But it's not, as long as it doesn't happen within the app. On the other hand, this parental gate also has to be present in any cross-promotional tool. So in terms of business, obviously, it's a hurdle whereby your clients have to be able to answer the gate to go and see what other products you make. With COPA came along a lot of companies called safe harbors. And I wanted to mention this because remember I said if you have a third-party SDK, it's your responsibility to check that they're COPA compliant. Well, some of these people take the legal risk of your app being COPA compliant. So Prevo, for instance, their prices are quite high, but they check your app, they check your privacy policies, and if you do whatever they ask you to do, then they take on the legal risk. So if the FTC comes along and says, sorry, your app is not COPA compliant, then it's their responsibility, not ours anymore. So it can be worthwhile looking into some of these safe harbors if you're not too sure about the ins and outs of COPA. So I said our client has 3 heads. We have to comply with COPA regulations. And then if that's not enough hurdles, we impose upon ourselves a third one, which is ethics. And as a Montessori teacher, it's very, very important to me that our apps don't include advertising or consumable in-app purchases. Again, our end user is a child under 13, and we don't think that it's appropriate for them to be exposed to. I have a few examples here. Now, this one on the left is not so bad. So you download a ABC app for your child and he can go into Flappy Bird 2, but it's relatively small. On the right-hand side, on the other side, they're learning numbers, and suddenly this huge pop-up screen comes along with something completely different and maybe not appropriate for them. So no judgment, just something that we impose on ourselves. So those are the hurdles that we have to deal with. But why are we in the business then? My first point is not very business oriented. I called it social responsibility. As a teacher, having taught for 8 years children from 3 to 6, I can only start to share the gratification of an aha moment with a child when he or she reads his first words or ties their shoelaces for the first time. So we're in it for the kids. When we first looked at the market in 2010, before the iPad was released, I said, but the iPhone was there. There was already a lot of educational content on the store, but not a lot of quality. So in our mission, we also wanted to provide quality content for parents and teachers. The result of the merger, how we're surviving in this very, very competitive market. The merger was a savior. Together we're stronger. We have a bigger catalog of apps which will allow us to go into subscription, which is the new model that's come along. And we've combined our databases and have now over 50,000 email addresses. And in a small market like France, we know that if we send a newsletter, we can go up to number 1 in the kids space, just our own database. Over the first 6 months, we've reduced costs by 20% and increased revenue by 20%. So over a very good operation. And also, it so happens that we had very, very similar cultures and very similar products, so the catalog came along really well. So another positive thing about the education market is the product life cycle. We're not designing apps that are meant to be a blockbuster for 3 months and then disappear from the face of the earth. We're designing products that can go through generations. And the good thing about education is that every single child on the planet, whether he lives in France, Germany, or the United States, has to learn to read and count and be creative and solve problems. So we are dealing with products that can last a very long time. And I mentioned Montessori Numberland, which is our first app released in 2010. well, it's still going strong and still accounts for a big part of our revenue. So the products that we make have a long life cycle. And then the other thing is, if we catch our first user at 3 years old and our products are qualitative enough for parents and or teachers and kids to like them, then we have designed our catalog for more products to come along and suit their needs as they grow. So not only will a number app to learn to count from 0 to 9 last 6 years, as long as you update it, of course, but also your client base can buy more of your apps. We think that cross-promotion accounts for 12% of our sales, even though we have to have the parental gate. So obviously it would be more without, but we can't think of that because we have to have the parental gate. So as a conclusion, I would say it's a very tough market. It's become very, very competitive recently, and there's been quite a lot of mergers and acquisition in this space in the last year or so. Some challenges or regulations that we have to comply to, but overall, we're doing this for the kids and we're still alive, so there is some way to make money on this market. Well, most of the actors who are in ranking in the kids space do it well in the kids space, because I know almost all my direct competitors, and I could say I'm only educational, but I have to compete with Tokaboka and the likes. So far, we've all decided to have this ethical behavior because the end client is the child. There are actors who I showed some examples who do advertising, but I don't see them in the rankings. So on the main menu of our apps, we will have an icon showing either new or promotion of another app. You can see there in the corner. And if the child taps on it, then gets a parental gate asking for date of birth. And then it goes on to a separate web page with all of our products.
So talking a bit about COPA, because it's a very complicated topic. How do you kind of navigate the gray areas? Because it's not as cut and dry as I was telling you exactly what a gate is and how you should implement it. How do you suggest, especially for smaller developers, on getting in and understanding that?
Yeah, well, I'm really no pro on COPA. It was just so that when COPA came back in 2013, it was before the merger, and we were a very small team. It was only 3 of us. And we were so scared of it that we removed any analytics we had in our apps. That's, because we didn't want to get into it. And so rather than being scared of getting caught, we just removed everything. So 2 years down the line, we thought, this is ridiculous because we don't get any analytics, And there's a point where it's like managing a company with a blindfold almost. Well, not almost. So we decided, that's where we got in touch with Prevo and decided that it was time for us to get help. And it so happened as well that 7 Academy that we merged with was using Prevo. We are now using Google Analytics, but the COPA compliant form. And so hopefully, well, not hopefully, because they guarantee it. So we're okay. To give you another example, in the latest app we released called Busy Water, it's a critical thinking puzzle game. And so there are 105 levels in the game, but then there's a build mode where children can build their own levels and share them with their friends. That's the whole point. Well, when you want to share it, there's just an icon that you have to press, and it gives you a code, and that's the code that you need to share with your friends for them to download the level you created. Well, in the States, we were not allowed to write in the pop-up that this code had been already copied onto the clipboard. to be COPA compliant. So children have to write down the code and then go into an email or whatever to write the code. But it's just so, it's important to mention it. And I know that other companies like DuckDuckMoose and even Toka make apps in which children can interact, and this was supposed to be a multiplayer session, wasn't it? It is a hindrance. There is a hurdle with this kind of app.
And especially in 2013 when they added video and audio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The video and the audio recording. So to get the picture of the credit card holders, it's so complicated. It's just like, no, let's not get anywhere near it.
Yeah. So you recommend using these other companies?
Prevo. Because then the only other option is not to sell in the US. And that's not an option. We don't have any ads except for our own products.
Great.
The game mechanisms, they're the same everywhere, whether for children or adults. But so I think most of them are already being used. A complete different answer, but what's becoming interesting to us is that we're teaching very basic skills to children, as I said, learn to count, learn to read, learn colors and shapes. But now there's a whole new market with senior citizens who have memory issues and need to learn their numbers and their letters and their shapes and their colors again. So although we probably wouldn't use the same type of drawings, which are a bit childish, but this can be a similar type of market to a completely different range of people.
Great, thank you. All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you,
Thanks.
Valerie.
Thank you.